So welcoming Joseph Itoje. Joseph Itoje is highly dynamic, results-oriented, with a keen analytical mind who is committed to continuous improvement through learning. He has collaborated with cross-functional teams in the design and implementation of IT systems. With his experience over the years, he has bolstered and is still aiding organizations to bridge the gaps between production and productivity through training and human capacity development. He currently consults with Panoramic Synergy Enterprises Limited, a leading business advisory and IT consulting firm. Outside his corporate life, he has a keen interest in sports and is active in God's vineyard. Please, with a clapping ovation on the chat room, please can we make welcome Joseph Itoje to take the next session. Joseph, please, you can take it off from here. Joseph, please take it off from here. Okay, so please, while we still wait for him, he's about to take the next session. Please just exercise a little bit of patience. Okay. Please kindly exercise a little bit of patience. He's about to join us. I think he's next. Okay. Joseph, you are welcome. Please, you can take it off from here. Hello, Joseph. Can you hear?
You can unmute yourself. I think you can unmute yourself so we can hear you. Can you hear us, Joseph? Hello, Joseph. Can you hear us? We can see your screen now, but we can't hear you.
Hello, Joseph. Are you there? Okay, everyone, please, we are sorry for that. Please, he's still trying to, he's already on call, but we can't hear him, so we are still trying to bring him back. Okay?
Introduction.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah, so without today, we're actually going to be walking through the 2900 Foundation IT privacy. And Thank you for everyone who is on the call. It's a pleasure to have you on a busy Saturday where you're supposed to be having your private moment, but you're here actually having to get information which will propel you further into decisions you hope to make in the future. Thank you so much for having me. So without wasting so much time, we'll get on with it today. Today, like I said, we'll be speaking about the ISO 29900, which speaks to data privacy. And without wasting much time, can anybody in layman terms actually speak to me and define what you understand by privacy? What do you understand by privacy? Hello? Can anyone on the call tell us what you understand by data privacy?
Please, you can put in your question on the chat room or answers on the chat room. Thank you.
Okay, that means I'll have to watch out for the chats, okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, someone said restricted and guided access to data. Awesome, awesome. Do we have any other responses? Do we have any other answers we want to put to the question? Hello? Okay. Okay, so basically, you have actually said what privacy is. So privacy speaks to, okay, someone said rights of individuals to keep their information. Awesome, awesome. Keep it coming. So privacy is, it's more like an individual's right to have their information safeguarded. And that's what privacy is. Now, today we are going to be speaking to data privacy and not just privacy now, because when we're talking about privacy, we're not just speaking to the individual's privacy, we're also speaking to information that is being also provided by the individual. Okay, someone says data privacy is all about the right of keeping information guided. Awesome, 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 awesome. So today, this is basically what we are trying to achieve during the duration of this training. We hope to give you insights into what the data privacy framework is all about. And then we also hope to achieve implementation, how you can actually implement and the design of the data privacy framework within your organization or wherever applicable you want to apply the 2900. Also, we'll also be looking at the section 3, which speaks to the annex, the terms, definitions, and section 3, I would say, is the bedrock to which we'll be looking into through section 1 and section 2. Why I say it's the bedrock is because for you to properly interpret the data within the framework, you need to understand terms and definitions. Terms and definitions are very, very key. I'll say they are the bedrock to which you can even understand what the guidelines of the ISO 2900 is. Oh, someone has said data privacy has to do with my data isn't accessed or used without permission. Awesome, 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 great, great. So without further approach, we'll get into it. So this is basically our learning objectives for today. We want to have an overview of the privacy principles, which is basically the fulcrum of the ISO 2900. Of course, there are also things we want to understand in terms of standards we can actually correlate the ISO 2900 to. We want to understand concepts, principles, requirements, processes, best practices aligned with data privacy and protection. We also want to understand approaches, methods, techniques to implement the framework. So these are things, these are learning objectives we hope to achieve. And of course, we also want to have an opportunity to see how we can also build careers in terms of data privacy areas we can also be challenged to improve, and also get into the data privacy area of the IT sector. So these are some of the key objectives we're trying to achieve. So data, everybody's talking about data. What is data? What do we do? You know, with the way the world is moving now, data is something we always utilize. I mean, from our everyday commercial use of data, and the framework has been established to say, okay, how can we have a check and balance to how people's data being collected can be well and effectively managed? So these are key things we need to, we're actually trying to cover within this framework. I mean, from daily use of your social media applications, social media apps, to softwares, you know, every day transactional data is being thrown across the internet, and we are in a phase where there's a whole lot of we're having a lot of challenges and data breaches, and you know, we want to ensure that most of this data we actually use collectively can be managed effectively. And coming from a data subject perspective, you want to, these are key things we hope to ensure are safeguarded. So it's a digital world. There's a whole lot of innovations going on, and people are actually using data daily. And you know, it's kind of like, I call it like kind of like a trade by barter kind of a thing, because people tend to give their data to ensure they get optimal services. So we want to, before we can get services offered to us, we want to exchange our data. And of course, if you're going to exchange your data, we must ensure that exchanging those data is exchanged securely, and not just exchanging them securely. We also have the concept of ensuring those data are not accessed by malicious actors. So these are the reasons why the framework has been introduced by an international body, because they've taken data privacy really serious. And unlike in the past where we had data actually being, you know, utilized and there was no accountability for the data being utilized. Now there's accountability. You need to be held accountable for all of the information you're trying to collect. And, you know, I'll still say a lot of applications and organizations are trying to, you know, they don't even want to collect a lot of data because of how you need to be accountable for the data you collect. You know, people want to collect data basically for what they just need to use that data for. So it's evolving. Data privacy is evolving, and it's a beautiful industry to actually take leverage upon. So we'll quickly jump into it, starting with the introduction to the framework, the privacy concepts, and the privacy framework. So like we've been speaking to the definition of privacy, we have the privacy of personal information, which speaks to data privacy. We also have privacy of people. We also have privacy of personal behavior. So just to quickly understand what the framework is all about, like I said, terms and conditions are the bedrock to which we can interpret this framework. So I'll quickly take us through to section 3, so that when we're speaking about these terms, you are able to understand in depth to what we're talking about. So I'll take us quickly down to section 3, which speaks to the annex terms and conditions, terms and definitions. So here, terms and definitions are very important. Like I said, they're very key to understanding what the framework is all about. And the framework has been divided into, has been scoped into 3 sections. First, the scope, terms and definitions, and the requirements. So these are part of the things we need to first understand before we can say, oh, let's even understand what the framework is all about. So these are some of the terms: anonymity, anonymization, anonymized data, consent. These are some of the terms we'll be coming in contact with during the session. So anonymity, what's anonymity? What do we understand? This anonymity deals with information that does not permit a personally identifiable principal to be identified. So we're looking at how to prevent key stakeholders or key persons or individuals from not being directly identified by, it could be maybe malicious actors, or just keeping them private based on conditions that has been set, based on contracts that has been set. And then we also speak to anonymization. So we have anonymization. Anonymization also speaks to the fact that we are trying to, alter some of the information, some of the data that has been given to a controller, or maybe some of the information you've provided to an application or a software. You want to ensure that that information is what we say altered, so that people cannot have direct access to the PII provision. And then we have anonymized data. So anonymized data is the process in which anonymization is actually done to the data. So you want to anonymize the data. So whatever information, for instance, whatever information is being given out to the application, or is given out to an organization, just like when you step into the bank, or when you step into a network service provider's facility, and then you give them your information, you want to ensure that this information is actually altered or encrypted, so that you don't have, it cannot be reversed. And then you also have consent. So consent is your daily, it's what you do, it's what you practice daily. So in fact, for information to be collected from you, you want to ensure that, oh, this service provider or this organization taking my data, I have actually signed, approved, appended my signatures to say that my data must not be utilized. You understand? So consent is something that has to be freely given by whoever is giving out that data. And of course, we have things like identifiability, identity. These are things we are actually conversant with. We have opt-in. Opt-in is also a form of consent to say, okay, we opt into this resource, we opt into this service, we opt into this information being processed this way. And then we also have PII, what we also know as personally identifiable information. Personally identifiable information is an information that can be used to identify a PII principal. Further, as we move on to understand who a PII principal is, and of course, the PII is an information that can be related or that can be used to identify a PII principal. So some of the PIIs, an example of a PII can be your name, it can be your surname, it can be any information that can be used to identify you. And here we have it, the PII controller. You know, we've been talking about PII since. PII controller speaks to a privacy stakeholder. So a privacy stakeholder is an entity or an individual or an authority that is interested in the effect of how information is being processed. So you have your PII controller. Your PII controller here is a privacy stakeholder that determines two things the PII controller does. It determines the purpose and the means for processing personally identifiable information. So can I put a challenge to everyone on the call? Can you give us an example of who a PII controller is based on our definition? Please just put it in the chat. I'll be looking through the chats. So we also have a PII principal. A PII principal is a natural person to whom PII relates to. So a PII principal can stand as me, you, or any naturally living person who has, okay, someone says human resource. Oh, well, human resource. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Human resource, maybe I'll put like human resource organization. Yes, because the person has to, whoever collects data has to be, certified, has to be, yeah, audits, yeah, admin. So the good thing, the beautiful thing about all these functions you have actually raised in the chat is they all come under a body, an organization, right? So the organization as a whole that carries out all these functions is the PII controller. So for instance, let's take Facebook and Instagram, or let's take the bank or whatever institution that collects information. They are known as PII controllers. So we have our PII controller, we have our PII principals. Your PII principals are people like us, individuals who give out our information. And then another terminology will also be coming across most likely is a PII processor, the personally identifiable information processor. So a PII processor processes information based on the instructions of the PII controller. And the PII controller, you can remember we said, determines the purpose and the means for processing personally identifiable information. So let's take, for instance, we have Facebook, or we have a bank that collects your information during onboarding when you want to, get a bank account. And this bank now says, okay, we're going to outsource some of our capabilities to a PII processor. So they can say, okay, let's give it to Microsoft. Let's give it to Oracle. And Oracle maybe in terms of like a DB, like a database that they can actually use to process some of the information that is being collected from you and I. And that's where we have a PII processor. So Microsoft can come in as a PII processor, or Oracle can come in as a PII processor, in the sense that they give out capabilities that speaks to storage, which is a processing technique. So a PII processor processes information. And when we talk about processing, what do we understand by data processing? What do we understand? Can anybody put that in the chat? What do you understand by processing of data? So you want to process information. You want to process information in a cycle from collection to storage to usage. There's some kind of a line you want to procedure you want to follow, like a structure when processing information. So these are things that are being done. And then we also have a privacy breach. Of course, that is the reason why the framework was here. So a privacy breach is where a situation whereby information that is being collected from you and I has been violated. So these are some of the terminologies. Also, privacy controls, we'll be looking at some of these terminologies. Privacy enhancing technologies. These are controls that consist of information ICT measures, products or services to protect privacy by eliminating some of the key issues that can cause a breach. So we have privacy enhancing technologies that we can actually use. And then we also have privacy policy. A policy is more like a directional guidance or an intention of an organization. So for a privacy policy, it's an overall intention and direction to express in form of a framework to actually ensure that data collected from individuals, from you and I, are protected effectively. So these are some of the things we'll be looking at: privacy preferences to privacy principles, privacy risk. What are privacy risks? Privacy risks are effects of uncertainty on information, personally identifiable information. We also have what we call privacy risk assessments. Privacy risk assessments are it's a process of risk identification, analysis, evaluation, treatment of risk that can disrupt or that can affect the processing of information. And we also have privacy safeguarding requirements as well. We also have requirements based on the framework that says this is how an organization must process information. So these are things that we also capture in the terminologies. And we also have the privacy stakeholder, like I mentioned earlier, like a natural or legal person, public authority, an agency who is actually interested in their decisions or activities related to processing of personally identifiable information. Then we also have processing of PII. So what is processing of PII? What do we understand by processing of PII? So processing are a set of operations that needs to be conducted upon your PII, your information. So some of these operations could be collection to storage to destruction to retention. These are some of the processes, and it's called a data life cycle. How data from data collection to right to when the data is destroyed. And then we also have another terminology here, pseudonymization. What's pseudonymization? It's actually a process applied to PII, like kind of like an encryption. It's a process that replaces information that has actually been collected from you and I. They want to replace those information with some kind of hashes or some kind of codes so that people cannot get, malicious actors don't get access to this information. We also have secondary use. These are some of the things we'll be speaking to. Sensitive PII. So sensitive PII can also relate to information that intimate to us information that shouldn't be known, more like your medical records, your statement of accounts. These are sensitive, personally identifiable information. We also have third parties. We also have so these are some of the terminologies we'll be using all through the training today. So I'll take us back to the introduction. I'll take us back quickly to the introduction. So we've defined what privacy is. We've had a discussion around it. We've defined what privacy is all about, data privacy is all about. And there's something, people always make, there's this mistake that always happens. I say, people just say, oh, data privacy is the same thing as data information security. But we need to also have that at the back of our mind that's not a fact, because data privacy, like we've mentioned, deals with how you manage access to information. While when you speak to information security, you're also speaking to how you manage the activity surrounding the information being collected. So those are two different things we speak about a lot. So data privacy, everybody has been talking about data privacy. Everyone has been speaking to why ensuring our information is properly safeguarded. In fact, I know sometimes when we go on applications, web applications, or whatever internet interface we're using, and we get on those interface, and we want to, make use of some of the resources that are on those on the internet. Sometimes we don't care to look at something that speaks to a privacy policy, because each of the websites we visit, sometimes you have what you call a data privacy policy or a data protection policy, which will give you insights to some things as regards your rights. Because as an individual, you have certain rights to how your information should be processed. And trust me, a lot of things are going on currently. Organizations are being a lot aware, because initially there was no accountability, but now there's accountability. There are a lot of fines that are attached to data privacy violation. So if organizations are in violation to how your data is being processed, you can even be paid some kind of compensation. And these compensations that are being paid are really huge. You understand? So it's very important for us to actually know how our information is being processed. Information is very key. It's powerful. So when you have an idea as to how your information is processed, you actually have understanding. You know your rights. If an organization is in violation of your rights, because a whole lot of things are happening now. A whole lot of data breaches are ongoing, and sometimes we might not actually have knowledge about these things that are happening. It might be happening within the back end, and they're trying to take care of all these things, but you might not have clear understanding of all of these things that are ongoing. So it's very important sometimes when you jump in on a web application, or you jump in on some internet portal, you want to look at the privacy section that says, okay, this is how all of the information we collect from you. Because sometimes there's improper sales of those data. I mean, on the dark web and all of those resources that people's information are being sold out to, and because you want to be, you don't want your information thrown out just like that. So you want to be aware as to how your information is processed. So that's why the ISO body came up with the 2900 framework to help organizations actually strategize and ensure that whatever information that is being processed, it's processed according to requirements of the international standards and best practices. So this is what the framework actually provides. They provide a high-level framework for the protection of PII within ICT systems. And what are ICT systems? ICT systems could be our applications, it could be our softwares, it could be processes that carry out these functions. So these are things the framework has actually given leverage to helping us protect information. And a lot of organizations are taking advantage of these frameworks because it has further enabled organizations to have a proper guidance to how their information is being information collected from individuals and natural entities to be protected appropriately. So it provides a high level framework. It also provides, it places technical, organizational, procedural aspects in the overall privacy framework. So it has given preference to how organizational controls, technical controls to ensure you have proper designs for your information. So it's intended, it can also be used by persons and organizations involved in designing. So these are key areas, and that's why I said there are a lot of opportunities within the privacy industry, because you're looking at software developers who are actually developing applications. It has provision guidance for how they need to, structure their applications to be designed in a privacy default manner, and also procurement for all the forms that are being used, all the business forms that are being utilized. I mean, you want to have a proper data privacy by default within your system. So procurement, architecting, testing, software testing, QA, business analysis. So these are key areas that the 2900 can also be using. Maintenance, operating information and communication technology systems. It has given you like a proper guidance. However, it's not detailed, but to an extent, it has provisioned some of these privacy controls. And of course, with the 2900, we can also use this 2900 in alignment with other standards, especially for the 27,000 information security group. So we can align the 27,000 information security group with the 2900. So some of the practices that are being adopted in this 27,001 can also be adopted. You can also map them to the 2900. So these are key things that we need to understand within the framework and how it can actually help organizations, and also insights on how you can also improve or adopt some of the practices that are being provisioned in the framework. In terms of building a career, also, this can also assist as well, because looking at what it says is intended to be used by persons and organizations involved in designing, development, software development, designing, QA, procuring, architecting, testing, QA, business analysis. So these are key areas you want to also look at and say, okay, can I go into delve further into data privacy and see how I can, improve some of my prospects. So if you have interest in data privacy, these are areas you can actually implement or apply some of the requirements of the framework to. So these are key areas. So let's quickly move further. So utilizing the adoption ISO 29 privacy framework within an organization, like we mentioned earlier, these are some of the key things we can actually do. So it has been scoped to actually like a technical reference guide. So this can form a technical reference architecture for your IT systems. And also, you want to also implement and use specific privacy enhancing technologies. So for your privacy enhancing technologies, and if you're trying to do some kind of innovations, this will also, at a high level, give you certain controls you can actually implement. So maybe during your software development and your for those who are into developing softwares, I mean, it can serve as a guide during your QA test to actually see if some of the requirements, controls that have been provisioned here within the framework can actually guide you. So you can use this as a guide as well. So, of course, privacy controls for outsourced data processing. So for processes that are being outsourced to organizations, remember when we talked about processing and PII processors. So we have people who might process information on your behalf. And this is what the framework can actually do. It can actually provision controls that will actually secure data that is being processed by external entities or third-party processors who are processing on your behalf. So it has given some set of guidelines that will also help. And then in terms of risk assessments, I know you know we want to have a proper risk assessment actually done to ensure that information that is being processed within the organizations are controlled. And like we earlier defined in terms of access, we want to ensure that there are no risks attached to access that can lead to data loss or data manipulation and all of those. And of course, another beautiful thing about the framework is it's going to give you leverage in terms of specific engineering specifications. So it's giving you that capability as well. So in the entirety of the scope of the framework, you have a whole lot of benefits. So these are some of the key correspondence similarities between the ISO 2900 and ISO 27000 group concept. So it basically gives you an opportunity to map some of these requirements to the concepts of the 27000 information security group. And the beautiful thing is you can streamline some of this into the 27000 group. So if you intend to implement within your organization, you want to ensure that, oh, some of these requirements are actually being provisioned here. You can say, okay, let's have these requirements mapped to, you know, the 27000 group requirements. And this will, of course, help you cut costs and in terms of cost optimization, which is a major factor within organizations. I mean, the board is looking for how to improve and ensure that all of the resources are being implemented within the organization are cost effective. So these are key things key concepts we can actually, you know, streamline within the 27000 information security group and the data privacy framework. So we've been talking about data privacy, and of course you can't talk about data privacy without also speaking to information security, data security. And like I said, I beg to differ when people say data privacy is the same as information security. For best practices, we don't want to actually define them as the same thing, because they have their distinct functions. However, a beautiful thing that has also ISO has also done is they have adopted the data privacy requirements. It has also been incorporated into the information security requirements. So at large, we now have some key requirements of data privacy in the information security standard. And that will also help, like I said, streamline our business processes and also optimize cost effectively. So what is information security? Can anyone, put in the chat what we understand by information security? What do you understand by information security? Oh, someone asked, please, can you state categorically how our personal information will be violated by the information handling bodies? Oh, as we delve in further into the framework, we'll actually see some of these things. But let me just give you some insights. For instance, we walk into the banking hall and we have been provisioned a form to fill in our data, and that data has been collected. And after collecting that data is now used for something else instead of what was stated in the form. That says, oh, we need to use this data to process transactions, or we need to use this data to carry out a health check or something. So this primary provision, primary purpose for processing information now has it might be they have used the data for something else entirely instead of the primary purpose that was clearly stated within the form. So that's already a violation to how your data is supposed to be processed. But further down, as we move further, we'll delve into some of the other key examples and case scenarios. So this is what information security is. So information security speaks to protecting sensitive information from what? Unauthorized activities. So what is the key thing there? If you notice, protecting sensitive information from unauthorized activities. And what are these activities? Could be modification, recording, destruction, disruption. So these are some of the things information security speaks to. So data privacy now speaks to protecting that information from being accessed. So the difference between information security and data privacy is data privacy actually deals with preventing access, while information security deals with protecting information from unauthorized activities. Okay, someone said in the chat, ensuring that confidentiality, that's integrity and availability, CIA of information is being preserved. Exactly. Of course, data privacy and information security speaks to the CI element of information security. So we won't be speaking to information security and data privacy as separate bodies or separate elements. However, we need to bring these components together because they work hand in hand. Because if there's no access, we won't have unauthorized activities ongoing. So that's why there is that correlation between information security and data privacy. And every time we talk about information security, we're also speaking to data privacy as well. So data privacy protects, prevents from access, while information security also protects and prevents from unauthorized activities. Okay, someone said information security is safeguarding information from unauthorized persons. Awesome, awesome. Awesome. So you see the elements of information security, which speaks to confidentiality, integrity, and availability, can also be applied to data privacy. And that's why we said we can streamline the requirements of the data privacy framework to what we already have within the information security requirement. So we can adopt both frameworks and streamline some of the similar processes together. Great. Let's quickly move ahead so these are some of the similarities. These are some of the key distinctions between the 2900 and the ISO family. So already under the 27,000 information security group, we already have a management system that actually speaks to privacy. So the 27,001 is a privacy information management system that can be implemented just like a management system using maybe like the Plan, Do, Check, Act procedure. So this 2900 can actually be implemented alongside other key standards or frameworks. So we have also the 27,001, which also can be utilized as a framework, this is a more detailed guidance or a more detailed framework that will ensure the privacy of information is kept secure. So 2900 normally will provide a high level framework for the protection of PII, but for the privacy information management system, which falls under the 27,000 information security group, will specifies the requirements and guides the establishing, maintaining, and continually improving of the privacy information management system. And the 27,001, what we need to understand is an extension of the ISMS. So we can implement all of these standards alongside each other based on similar requirements they already have. So that's the beautiful thing about it. And if you see here, it says the 27,001 provides information on mapping the 2900 to based on the principles defined. So all of the principles that we'll be going through in the 2900, you can also find in the 27,001. However, at a more detailed level. Great. So why should organizations adopt ISO 2900? Initially, regulations were not basically being enforced around the world, and currently we have a lot of regulations now springing up in terms of data privacy. People are becoming aware. Daily we're trying to ensure that information is protected, and a lot of these requirements now. Some organizations will not want to have business with you if you don't have some of these frameworks implemented within your organization. So first of all, imagine you trying to do a business with an international body, and in fact, maybe you just got the contract. And as you got the contract, they said, okay, please, can you give us, can you prove to us you are certified in data privacy and you have a certification? And you're there looking. And right there on the spot, another organization who has been certified actually comes with that certification. I mean, you get kicked off immediately. So it's very important. And currently, we also know that there are a lot of innovations going on within ICT systems, complexity in ICT systems. we want to also have something like a guidance that will also help ensure that we are processing information in the appropriate way. And because of the complexity in ICT systems, we want to also we don't want to just we don't want to be very careless with how information is being processed. Like I said, there's a whole lot that is being going on, and it's not even small organizations now. A lot of big organizations are taking this approach to ensure they are adopting privacy frameworks and privacy standards because it's a key thing to their business because of a lot of the cyber threats that are happening. I mean, let's look back at some of these big organizations like Twitter when they had some kind of data breach and a lot of users' data was being sold across the dark web. And then we also had, even to our almighty world power, United States of America, who also had some kind of system breach within some of their system. I think that was the United States Airports Authority. They had some kind of a breach from a Russian group and they were attacked. So these are things that we are trying to, and this is why ISO as a body has said, okay, let's come up with this framework to help address some of these key issues, and based on the innovations that have been ongoing within our ICT, IT space. I mean, your AI has come into play, a whole lot of innovations within the technology space. You also want to factor in, are we having a proper data privacy by design within these systems? So that's why this framework has been developed to actually help, organizations that are actually processing information. It has come in handy now to say, okay, we can use this framework to guide us in how our system designs, our testing, and this has come in handy to organizations. So this is why we want to achieve compliance with frameworks like the ISO 29900 to ensure that PII that are being processed by PII controllers or are being
Hello, Joseph, are you there? Hello, Joseph, are you still there? Oh, we lost him. Please, we are going to reconnect again, please. Sorry, I think his network has disconnected him. He's going to join us shortly. Please, we are sorry for the break. You will be joining us shortly.
Hello, sorry for that disruption. Um, that was a network glitch. I'm sharing my screen right again. So basically, a lot of organizations are having to ensure they are data privacy compliant because in so many jurisdictions of the world, you don't want to you can't even process information um, if you don't have if you're not certified. So, like I said, it's a changing and evolving world based on the complexity of ICT systems that are being developed. So we also need to factor in we also need to factor in the necessity for ensuring data that we process is protected effectively. Sorry, my screen is coming up. Just a moment.
Okay, sorry everyone, we're trying to get back Joseph to the call. He's having a little network glitch.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. We can see your screen now.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So without wasting so much time, like I said, the framework is going to help guide your processing activities within your organization, and we'll be delving further into some of the controls of the 2900. So thanks to ISO, the International Standard Organization, which has actually come up with these great and awesome controls to actually guide and direct how information is being processed. And remember, when we talked about process, we are speaking to how information is collected, used, stored, retained, and destroyed. So this framework also not just only speaks to that, but also speaks to how your ICT systems can also be configured to ensure you're delivering best practices in terms of how information is being collected, in terms of your privacy by design and default. So, like we said earlier, these are some of the control objectives. We'll be running through we've talked about the scope, we've spoken about terms and conditions. We've also some of the symbols and abbreviated terms will also be coming across. We've also talked about some of them. We've also so we'll also be speaking to the basic elements of the privacy framework. So these are some of the key things we'll be speaking to: elements in terms of elements of the systems, in terms of your the roles, actors, interactions. So some of these key things we'll be delving further. The overview of the privacy framework. We'll be speaking to some of these key things further. So this is just a representation of what the 2900 speaks to as a framework. And all of these things are more like controls objectives that we want to achieve during the implementation of the data privacy framework within our system. I mean, if you're going to integrate this framework into your operations and business activities, you need to actually ensure that you have these requirements and this objective certified. So without wasting time, we'll jump on it before our tea gets warm. So like we spoke about the scope speaks to specifying a common privacy terminology. Of course, we're also going to define the actors and their roles, because the actors and roles are very key as well. Because if we're going to implement the 2900 framework, we want to have people, expert knowledge who can actually carry out this process, and that's why we have also said this is another area you can also build a career in, because there's a lot of opportunities based on some of the roles that are also defined in here as well. And then we're also going to be describing some of the privacy safeguarding considerations that the framework has spoken about. And of course, also speaks to providing references to known privacy principles around the world. So there are common principles that are being used around the world. And the great thing about the 2900 privacy framework is it can be also implemented alongside different other frameworks like the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which was implemented by the European Commission, by Europe, and we also have some of these. We also have some of these. So we also have some frameworks that can also be implemented alongside this framework. So we have, like I said, we have GDPR. We have, even back to Nigeria here, we have a Nigerian Data Protection Act, which was actually assented into law as of June by the current government. And then we have other beautiful regulatory frameworks as well. Besides the GDPR, we have the HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability Act, HIPAA, which was provisioned by the United States, and other fantastic regulations as well, which can be implemented alongside the framework. So without wasting much time, we'll just jump into section 2, which speaks to designing and developing an organizational privacy management framework. So how do we adopt the principles of data privacy by design and default within ICT systems in our organization? So these are some of the key principles. These are the principles of the 2900 framework. And the beautiful thing is some of these principles can also be found in the GDPR. We can also find these principles in the NDPR, as well as the 27701 management system. So these principles collectively can be implemented. That's why I said we can actually implement alongside some of the regulatory data privacy regulatory frameworks. And of course, these are the 11 principles I will be speaking to: consent and choice, purpose, legitimacy, and these are some of the things we've been talking about: collection limitation, data minimization, use, retention, accuracy, quality, openness, transparency, accountability. So these are some of the key areas, key principles of the data privacy. Speaking about the elements, some of the elements that we need to ensure these principles are being adhered to are some of the PII providers, the PII receivers, controllers in if applicable, and our PII our processors. So these are some of the key elements that needs to be available, resources that needs to be available to ensure the proper implementation of the privacy framework. So here is a schematic of how information should actually transition right from the PII provider, which is the data subject, or PII principal, whichever nomenclature we're going to use for it. So this gives us a larger spectrum of how information should be processed. So the framework has given us this schematic to say, okay, once a PII is provided, a data subject or a PII principal provides information, they need to have some certain preferences to how their information is processed. So you want to have in your business forms or in your data collection forms, or whichever format in which information is collected, that actually states what you're using the information to use, to why you're collecting that information. And they need to have preferences to tick, oh, we want this information, okay, we want to give this information out, or we don't want to give this information out. And of course, consent also comes to play. So this gives us a larger spectrum of how information should be collected, stored, used, transferred, destroyed. And these are some of the preferences that we're speaking to. And at the receiving end, we have the PII controller, like we defined earlier, that speaks to how information is collected and how the purpose and means to which how the information should be used. So the PII controller is processing those information based on a set of guidelines, legal requirements, and business use cases. So we'll just quickly jump into it. And these are some of the actors, elements, resources that will be needed to implement and drive the data privacy requirements. So we have the PII principles. Who are the PII principles? These are actors. I mean, without the PII principles, we won't have information. Like we said, data is an every minute thing. So we need to provide as individuals. We are the PII principles. We need to provide our information that needs to be processed. So of course, PII principles can include, for example, an employee listed in the human resource system of a company. So PII principles are just natural individuals. It could be me, it could be you. So those are the PII principles. And another actor will also need to look at the PII controllers. So these are some of the resources that will be needed, from the PII controllers to the third parties to the PII processors. These are some of the key elements that will be needed to drive the requirements of the framework. And of course, there's an interaction. It has also provisioned guidelines to how interactions should be done between the PII principals, the PII controllers, third parties, and whichever other privacy stakeholder that is involved in processing of information or decisions that might affect the processing of information. So these are some of the interactions that happens. For instance, a PII principal can provide PII to a PII controller. So it's just like me providing my information to Facebook, because I need to get the service of Facebook. So for Facebook to actually process, to render that service to me, they need some of my information, which I need to provide to them. So a PII controller can also provide information to a PII processor. So we can have maybe GT Bank, or we can have maybe Zenith Bank providing information to Oracle information first before they can run some processing. You understand? So there's that interaction between the PII principal, PII controller, and other parties, relevant parties. And it is very necessary to understand what exactly is going on. So the requirement has said, have an activity register. You need to know, what are we really processing? What are the information we are really collecting? And this is where interactions, you want to say that we are actually processing information according to the guidelines of the framework. So this is a flow chart that speaks to how information can actually be processed. So for example, looking at scenario A, we have, like we established earlier, you and I providing our information to Facebook. Scenario B can be Zenith Bank provisioning their provisioning data to Oracle. And then scenario C, we're looking at a situation whereby I'm providing my information directly to the processor. So the processor here can be Facebook. You understand? So these are some of the interactions that actually happens um, during processing of information. Of course, we also want to recognize PII. So as an organization first, before you even say I'm a PII controller, you want to say, okay, do we actually process information? So you need to know, yes, do we process personally identifiable information? Of course. Do we have names that we collect? Do we have BVNs that we collect? So these are things that will actually say, yes, we are actually processing information. So of course, your ICT systems should be built to actually say, okay, we process information like the forms, business forms, or data that's been collected on an application. You want to specify, okay, name, surname. Oh, do we really collect this information? So that is where you can now decide if you are a PII controller or a PII processor. So you have also things like identifiers under recognizing PII. So these are some of the things, identifiers. We have our social security numbers, passport numbers. These are some of the key things that we also have. So examples of attributes that we can actually use to identify natural persons. So these are some of the things. So if we notice, we have some key identifiers here. We have age, we have special needs, we have national identifiers, your passport number, your BVN, your behavioral profile, your telephone number. So a combination of these attributes can be used to, however, identify individuals. So this is why the standard has specified these things explicitly, so that we know that we need to be in compliance with some of these requirements. And of course, informations which might be linked or to API principles, pseudonymous data like we had earlier said about. So pseudonymization, we're trying to encrypt all the information. We're trying to do data masking. We're trying to hash some of the information within the database. So some of the information that has been collected from us, we want to do some kind of hashing and some kind of encryption to ensure that data that is moving in transit or in storage is properly secure. Of course, to metadata, to unsolicited PII, and that's why it's very important to have all of it. So these are some of the key safeguarding requirements that we must look into. Please, if we have any questions, can we drop it in the chat? Because I went off the chat for a moment, so I probably might not see your questions again. So if you have any questions, please kindly drop in the chat. So these are some of the things the framework has said. We must have.
Please, we'll be taking questions at the end of the training.
Okay, that's noted. That's noted.
Thank you.
So these are some of the factors. So we need to do a proper pestle analysis to actually. So pestle analysis, we want to look at economic, political, and environmental factors that might affect how we process our information. And this is a part of the risk.
At this point,
so these are some of the things we need to, privacy safeguarding requirements, and all of these things can be done during privacy risk assessment. Also, we need to have our privacy policies. All of these privacy policies can define and direct our organization how things how information should be processed. And not only that, we have our privacy controls as well. So privacy controls will tell us based on some of the requirements that can be pulled from the framework here that will help us ensure that we are in compliance and that whatever risks that might suffice during our processing of information can be managed. So this is where our privacy controls. So the privacy controls are more like objectives. So why is it important for the PII to be protected? Why is it important? We want to meet legal and regulatory requirements in whatever country we are in. We also want to increase consumer credibility. We want to reduce the number of security breaches, which is a very key factor. So these are some of the benefits. Of course, you can't just implement the privacy framework without having certain benefits. So these are some of the benefits that it will also profile when we implement. Of course, we can also use the PDCA cycle, the Plan, Do, Check Act, which is normally used for the privacy information management system approach. We can use that to implement the privacy framework. So you want to do some kind of planning. You want to establish where you are as an organization as to what you currently have. And then you want to develop policies. You want to test and measure if you're actually in compliance with whatever is. And also you want to check. You want to also continually improve on all of these things. So this is what the PDCA cycle is all about: the Plan, Do, Check, Access. These are some of the requirements we can use as a guidance. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Transformation College, for having me on the call. Thank you, everyone. This will be the end of the lecture series for the data privacy framework. Thank you, Mercy. Over to you.
Thank you, Joseph. That was an informative information that you brought to us in short while. Please, can everyone applaud our trainer, our second trainer for today? Okay, so I don't know if we have questions to ask. So, but before now, a question was asked. So I'm going to read the question to you. Please kindly draw the line of difference between information security and data privacy.
Okay, thank you, Mercy. Basically, so data privacy speaks to preventing access. So it's more on prevention of access to so data privacy will just say speaks to confidentiality, while information security speaks to protecting against unauthorized use, unauthorized processing of information.
Okay.
I don't know if it answers your question.
Okay, let me check if we do. Okay, someone has a question. The question says, does data privacy work against unwanted acts, especially pop-up acts that may access our information?
So the good thing about data privacy, so if you have proper controls in place in terms of your access management, then you wouldn't have unauthorized usage of information. So if there's a proper access management in your system, and you know that your information is classified, no one can get access to an information system, then you know you won't have any interactions with whatever data is stored in your system.
Okay, thank you. Next question says, If truly our data is being safeguarded, how do these scammers who call have access to our information without us releasing it to them?
Yeah. So basically, these are some of the things we are trying to prevent malicious actors. So we're trying our best, and that's why the framework has come up with this sets of guidelines. And if you look through some of the requirements, it even spoke to data security, and it has specified some controls that we can actually use to prevent. And if we want to prevent some of these malicious actors from getting access to our information, we need to actually implement some of these frameworks and standards to help minimize some of these breaches that we were talking about.
Okay. All right. Next question says, I have a friend who uses the dark web. How does it secure a data privacy in that case?
First of all, you shouldn't be using the dark web. It's not in terms of ethics, it's not ideal to actually engaging on the dark web. So for the dark web, I don't know how I don't interact with dark web. So I'll just say it's best you don't even have anything to do on the dark web.
Okay. Okay, so someone asked, is data privacy same as data confidentiality? I think you already answered that. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a question. That's for I'm asking this. So while we are maybe browsing, you see a pop-up question that says accept accept all there is a way they put it, accept all cookies. So in that case, does it have to do with our privacy or information? Does that in any way have something to do with that?
Yeah. So cookies exactly. For cookies, they're just trying to see how probably understand how you make use of the internet. So cookies in that aspect, they want to get insight to some of your cached data. So for best practices, it's a good thing to have a design whereby people can opt out,
Okay.
because not everyone wants to have that information, you know, shared with a third party. You understand? So you should have a design within your systems that says we can opt in or opt out of a cookie request. Because sometimes what we've noticed is outrightly is either you accept or you can't make use of the resources on that platform. So normally best practices is design it to have an opt-in and opt-out content.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to be taking the very last question for this session right away. And the question says, do we have mechanisms in place to destroy or delete data if requested to do so?
Yeah, there are certain ways we can actually destroy data completely. I mean, the best practice is still through fire, because if you're going to use the degaussing technique, whereby you're trying to clean data, you might still have residual data, even if those if that device is um, brought out again. So the best is destroy the data, destroy whatever device that contains that data, or maybe through fire or something very disruptive.
Okay, that suffices. Thank you so much, Joseph. Please, can we give him a round of applause? He's done justice to privacy management. You will all agree with me. Please, let's give him a round of applause. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Mary Jane. Thank you, Mary Jane. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And for the first and the second session, it's been an insightful one. It's been an informative one. We will be going on a very short break right about now. Please kindly give us your feedback. A feedback link will be provided on the chat room. Please give us your feedback on how, whatever you want to say, talk to us about it so we can improve on our services. So we'll be going on a 18-minute break right now. I'll be returning at 1:20. Please, we have our very own proprietor. I don't want to introduce him now. He will be taking us for the next session. So please make your way back for the third session and be prompt about it. Thank you and do have a beautiful break.